In this episode, you'll discover why rowers push the handles down before the catch and cause the blade to sky, and importantly, how to fix it.
Feel the grip of the oar handle, smooth yet firm in your hands. Taste the salt of your own sweat and the occasional splash of water. It's all part of the journey. Welcome to another episode of Faster Masters Rowing Radio. Each week, our host, Masters rowing coach Rebecca Caro, dives deep into the world of Masters rowing. Whether you're on the water or in the gym, join us to become a faster master. Let's go rowing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Faster Masters Rowing Radio, where today's episode has been prompted by a friend of mine, Roger, who is known for his pithy expressions. Roger wrote to me, "Oars are still creating hazards to low-flying seagulls as the right hand pushes forwards and down at the catch." Now, he's obviously talking about sculling, and why he particularly mentions the right hand and not the left, I don't know. Roger, come back to me on that one. Skying is the word that rowing coaches use to describe the position of the spoon of the oar relative to the water. So here's my oar spoon, and if the bottom of my screen is the water, ideally just before the catch, your oar comes down so that it's a few millimeters above the surface of the water before it goes under the water. Skying is the opposite, where as you get closer to full slide, the oar rises so that it is higher above the water than it needs to be. Now, this is about efficiency. How can you minimize the amount of wasted time at the catch before you put the oar under the water? As your slide rolls forward and your shins get to vertical and your knees get to their highest point, that is the moment where your oar spoon needs to go under the water, or ideally be already under the water, so that you get the maximal stroke length. The longer your oar is above the water, what tends to happen is your slide comes to full compression and then starts moving in the opposite direction. And the further you move away from that change of direction point, which is where the wheels are closest to your feet, the less leg drive you have available to use in your stroke, and as a consequence, your stroke gets shorter and shorter. So nobody wants that, but the causes of skying at the catch are usually straightforward. If on the recovery, the bottom edge of your blade clips the water, in order to avoid that, people push their handles down so that the oars are higher above the water, and that's a good solution to clipping the water, because when you clip the water, it tends to also push the oar up into the air. Another cause of skying is squaring the blade. Often when people start to roll the blade square in sweep and in sculling, they push the handle down. Why? Usually because the oar spoon, when it's feathered, is too close to the water surface to allow it to fully roll square without this bottom edge touching the water. So that's obviously more of a problem if you have to push your handles down in order to square. That causes more squaring because otherwise your oar would hit the water. And the third cause, I think, is a lack of awareness of weight in the hand. Weight in the hand is the downward pressure on the handle of the blade that you use to keep the oar tip above the surface of the water. So, ignoring that, the way to then get towards the cures for skying on the catch is this. First, I think we need to learn how to have more weight in the hand. There are a lot of drills that you can do, but fundamentally, your oar handle has to be at least at the same height as your elbow for you to be able to successfully put downward pressure on the handle. If you have your wrist cocked and bent, it's very hard to push down on the oar handle. Now, the amount of downward pressure is actually very, very slight. You do not need to put a lot of pressure down in order to keep the oar handle tracking on a perfect horizontal path through the recovery. So the second cure for skying is learning the horizontal path. Now, those of you who might remember Al Morrow's talk at our VIP day this year, 2025, it was all about good rowing is horizontal. In the recovery, keeping your oar handle tracking at the same height until just before the catch is a good way to ensure that you don't hit any waves, and that if that height is correct, you also have enough room to square. So knowing the path of the handle is really, really important so that your handle doesn't corrugate, i.e. go up and down during the recovery. So if you have any video of yourself, it's very easy to see if your handle is corrugating. You can see, if you're in sweep, you can see the circular end of the oar handle if you're filmed from 90 degrees square off, and look at it in slow motion and see whether it goes along at a constant height or whether it goes down and then up and maybe down again during the course of both the power phase and the recovery phase. But right now, we're mainly talking about the recovery phase. So ways to learn the horizontal path of the handle. One of the best ways is to row with your oars flat on the water on the recovery. So take the oars out of the water, feather, and then rest them down on the water surface. The water surface is always horizontal. Even if there are waves, it is always a horizontal surface. And so by pushing your handles along the surface, you should get a sense of how the handles track when you have no vertical movement on the handle. Now, your handle height when your oars are flat on the surface is near identical to the handle height that you want during the power phase. Because when your oars are square, because of most oars nowadays are asymmetric, and where the handle inserts into the spoon is very close to the same height as the top edge of the spoon, you will be able to successfully work out exactly how high your handles need to be in the power phase in order that your spoon is buried under the water. So watch the path of the handle. Actually look down and look at your hands guiding the oar. From there, you might want to add some visual reference cues. For example, I know that my handle is at the right height when I've got my hands away and my body over, and I can see a straight line to my knuckle, and then that goes to the wing rigger, or it goes to this point on the shirt of the person in front of me, so that you can have a point of reference that if your handle is too high, you know that you've gone above that visual reference point. And you can also then build your tap down into that running the oars along the surface drill. So start by running them along the surface, then tap down 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters, and progressively lower the amount of handle height, but try and then keep the path still horizontal. So that's my ideas about skying at the catch, what causes it, what some of the cures are, and as Roger says, we don't want to cause hazards to low-flying seagulls. Till next time.
We are part of the RowingChat podcast network. Please tell your fellow rowers about the show. If you've learned just one helpful thing from today's episode, please consider supporting the show for as little as $1 per month by visiting fastermastersrowing.com/podcast.